Hey, welcome to Socialism for All. This file is being recorded for the October 2022 edition of Socialism for All, and it's an audiobook and discussion of Lessons of the Commune by Lenin from 1908. If you like this video, please click like and subscribe, and consider supporting on Patreon at patreon.com/socialismforall. So, this piece was first published in Zagraniczna Gazeta No. 2, March 23, 1908, and published here according to that text. The source is Lenin Collected Works, Progress Publishers, 1972, Moscow, Volume 13. Translated by Bernard Isaacs, HTML transcription and markup by R. Simbala, and it's in the public domain at the Lenin Internet Archive within the Marxists Internet Archive. Marxists.org thanks as usual to MIA for hosting this and thousands of other free Marxist texts. So we begin with a note from MIA about this piece. It is the verbatim report of a speech made by Lenin. The editors of the newspaper introduced the article with the following remark. An international meeting was held in Geneva on March 18 to commemorate 3 proletarian anniversaries: the 25th anniversary of the death of Marx, the 60th anniversary of the March Revolution of 1848, and the anniversary of the Paris Commune. Comrade Lenin, on behalf of the RSDLP, spoke at the meeting on the significance of the Commune. And the Zagraniczna Gazeta was a newspaper published by a group of Russian emigrants in Geneva from March to April 1908. So let's begin. After the coup d'etat, which marked the end of the Revolution of 1848, France fell under the yoke of the Napoleonic regime for a period of 18 years. This regime brought upon the country not only economic ruin, but national humiliation. In rising against the old regime, the proletariat undertook 2 tasks, one of them national, and the other of a class character: the liberation of France from the German invasion, and the socialist emancipation of the workers from capitalism. This union of 2 tasks forms a unique feature of the Commune. The bourgeoisie had formed a government of national defense, and the proletariat had to fight for national independence under its leadership. Actually, it was a government of national betrayal, which saw its mission in fighting the Paris proletariat. But the proletariat, blinded by patriotic illusions, did not perceive this. The patriotic idea had its origins in the Great Revolution of the 18th century. It swayed the minds of the socialists of the Commune, and Blanqui, for example, undoubtedly a revolutionary and an ardent supporter of socialism, could find no better title for his newspaper than the bourgeois cry, "The country is in danger." Combining contradictory tasks, patriotism and socialism, was the fatal mistake of the French socialists. Let's read that sentence again. Combining contradictory tasks, patriotism and socialism, was the fatal mistake of the French socialists. In the Manifesto of the International, issued in September 1870, Marx had warned the French proletariat against being misled by a false national idea. The Great Revolution, class antagonisms had sharpened, and whereas at that time the struggle against the whole of European reaction united the entire revolutionary nation, now the proletariat could no longer combine its interests with the interests of other classes hostile to it. Let the bourgeoisie bear the responsibility for the national humiliation. The task of the proletariat was to fight for the socialist emancipation of labor from the yoke of the bourgeoisie. And indeed, the true nature of bourgeois patriotism was not long in revealing itself. Having concluded an ignominious peace with the Prussians, the Versailles government proceeded to its immediate task. It launched an attack to wrest the arms that terrified it from the hands of the Paris proletariat. The workers replied by proclaiming the Commune and civil war. Although the socialist proletariat was split up into numerous sects, the Commune was a splendid example of the unanimity with which the proletariat was able to accomplish the democratic tasks which the bourgeoisie could only proclaim. Without any particularly complex legislation, in a simple, straightforward manner, the proletariat, which had seized power, carried out the democratization of the social system, abolished the bureaucracy, and made all official posts elective. But 2 mistakes destroyed the fruits of this splendid victory. The proletariat stopped halfway. Instead of setting about expropriating the expropriators, it allowed itself to be led astray by dreams of establishing a higher justice in the country, united by a common national task. Such institutions as the banks, for example, were not taken over, and Proudhonist theories about a just exchange, etc., still prevailed among the socialists. The second mistake was excessive magnanimity on the part of the proletariat. Instead of destroying its enemies, it sought to exert moral influence on them. It underestimated the significance of direct military operations in civil war, and instead of launching a resolute offensive against Versailles that would have crowned its victory in Paris, it tarried and gave the Versailles government time to gather their dark forces and prepare for the blood-soaked week of May. But despite all its mistakes, the Commune was a superb example of the great proletarian movement of the 19th century. Marx set a high value on the historic significance of the Commune. If, during the treacherous attempt by the Versailles gang to seize the arms of the Paris proletariat, the workers had allowed themselves to be disarmed without a fight, the disastrous effect of the demoralization that this weakness would have caused in the proletarian movement would have been far, far greater than the losses suffered by the working class in the battle to defend its arms. Footnote there, for Marx's evaluation of the historical role of the Paris Commune as a forerunner of the new society, see the Civil War in France, and letters to Kugelmann for April 12 and 17, 1871. Back to the text. The sacrifices of the Commune, heavy as they were, are made up for by its significance for the general struggle of the proletariat. It stirred the socialist movement throughout Europe. It demonstrated the strength of civil war. It dispelled patriotic illusions and destroyed the naive belief in any efforts of the bourgeoisie for common national aims. The Commune taught the European proletariat to pose concretely the tasks of the socialist revolution. The lesson learned by the proletariat will not be forgotten. The working class will make use of it, as it has already done in Russia during the December uprising. The period that preceded the Russian Revolution and prepared it bears a certain resemblance to the period of the Napoleonic yoke in France. In Russia, too, the autocratic clique has brought upon the country economic ruin and national humiliation. But the outbreak of revolution was held back for a long time, since social development had not yet created the conditions for a mass movement, and, notwithstanding all the courage displayed, the isolated actions against the government in the pre-revolutionary period broke against the apathy of the masses. Only the Social Democrats, by strenuous and systematic work, educated the masses to the level of the higher forms of struggle, mass actions, and armed civil war. The Social Democrats were able to shatter the common national and patriotic delusions of the young proletariat, and later, when the manifesto of October 17th had been wrested from the Tsar due to their direct intervention, the proletariat began vigorous preparation for the next inevitable phase of the revolution, the armed uprising. Having shed common national illusions, it concentrated its class forces in its own mass organizations, the Soviets of Workers' and Soldiers' Deputies, etc. And notwithstanding all the differences in the aims and tasks of the Russian Revolution, compared with the French Revolution of 1871, the Russian proletariat had to resort to the same method of struggle as that first used by the Paris Commune, civil war. Mindful of the lessons of the Commune, it knew that the proletariat should not ignore peaceful methods of struggle. They serve its ordinary, day-to-day interests. They're necessary in periods of preparation for revolution, but it must never forget that in certain conditions the class struggle assumes the form of armed conflict and civil war. There are times when the interests of the proletariat call for ruthless extermination of its enemies in open armed clashes. This was first demonstrated by the French proletariat in the Commune, and brilliantly confirmed by the Russian proletariat in the December uprising. And although these magnificent uprisings of the working class were crushed, there will be another uprising, in face of which the forces of the enemies of the proletariat will prove ineffective, and from which the socialist proletariat will emerge completely victorious. That's the end of the audiobook. So I just want to point out that the Russian Revolution, Lenin writing in 1908 here, that he's talking about is the first Russian Revolution, period 1905 to 1907. This was sort of the big break of the bourgeoisie against the Tsar, and this resulted in the establishment of the Duma, the parliament, which at first was just advisory, etc. But it was a period of mass uprising and rebellion. Of course, Russia was sort of on the brink of feudalism and early capitalism, so it was more of a bourgeois revolution, but there was a lot of proletarian and peasant involvement. So much so that, of course, just about a decade later, there was the actual socialist revolution, which broke through the bourgeois lead and put the proletariat in the center of the revolution. All right, what do you think? Leave a question or comment below, and we'll continue the discussion in the comment section as always. Otherwise, thanks for listening, and thanks to the current patrons. Again, patreon.com/socialismforall is where you can support. You can sign up for as little as $2 a month or more, whatever you see fit. I would make content even if nobody paid, but the financial support allows me to spend a lot more time on it, so that's much appreciated. Also, like, share, subscribe, because that helps to boost the channel in the YouTube algorithm and helps YouTube to recommend this content to more people. Lastly, remember that the struggle goes on in real life, so while you can get a lot of education and have some discussion online, and that's great, you've really got to get out there, join your community organizations, support labor unions, tenant unions, anti-capitalist political parties, that definitely does not include the Democratic Party, and other workers' coalitions that you may find in your area. All right, thanks again, and we will see you in the next video.